All right, gorgeous ladies, welcome back to today's episode. Or let me start that over. Hello, beautiful ladies. Welcome to today's episode. I have an incredible woman on the podcast with me today. She has just inspired me. I'm already speechless. She's inspired me in so many ways and has helped me worked through so many shifts, has healed parts of me that I didn't know needed healing. I go through masterclass after masterclass of hers, and I'm just so grateful that she is going to be speaking with all of us and sharing her light and her energy with us today. She is the founder and creator of Alpha Femme, an 8-figure business and life mentor. Amazing. And she's creating global impact in feminine leadership. Please welcome to the show, Miss Melanie Ann Layer.
Hello, it is an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, like I was saying, I'm, such an inspiration. I know for me, as well as hundreds of thousands of other women out there, just being a part of your groups on Facebook. And that's obviously like where Melanie, you can find her do her thing. She's just absolutely remarkable. And I think what always just hits me is how profound you are with just your concepts and the words. And it was funny because one of your master classes, you said, I learned how to speak versus talk. Like I know when to talk and when to speak.
Yes.
And I'm striving to do that too. I need to take some Toastmasters classes. but yeah, you just have a way with words that I always tell people when I'm sharing about you. I'm like, she'll say the most simple thing, but it means it's the biggest shift in someone's mind. And I feel like us humans, we just make everything complicated, and that's why it's just complicated. We feel life is hard, or relationships are hard, or business is hard because we make it that way. So yeah. So I'm just, like I said, grateful that you're here and you can share some of those shifts with us. Absolutely. So can you first, about my podcast, it is about how entrepreneurs have basically gone from challenge to triumph, gone from darkness to light, hardship to just an awakening. And I would love for you to share your story. I know that I've listened to many episodes of your story, and I love it every single time. So would you love to care to share with us?
So it's so funny to tell this story so many times because it's a crazy thing. And the further away I am from the story, the more it blows my mind to tell it. Like right now, we're right in the trenches. Like 8 years ago, right now, I'm sleeping in my car in the parking lot of a hardware store in a snowstorm. Like there's a snowstorm now that I'm seeing through the windows of my house. Well, 8 years ago, I was sleeping in my car watching the snow fall like this with absolutely no reason whatsoever to think things were going to change, because I had really it's not like I was trying something that was failing. It literally was just everything had ended. I had ended a 7-year relationship that ended poorly. I was a commission-only sales job. I'd helped him become the manager of it. I broke up with him. He fired me. I had to, work something like 200 kilometers outside of my hometown. Paychecks weren't coming in. The company was having difficulties. Next thing, they weren't paying me. So I couldn't sleep in a hotel anymore. And then next thing, I'm going bankrupt in the front seat of my Honda Civic. And I don't know what the hell happened. I'm like, how on earth did I get here? And I was at odds with every person that mattered in my life, because they had been telling me for a long time to let go of this partner. There wasn't the right fit, and I wouldn't listen. And just very bitter towards a lot of people in my life. I'd always been the good girl, the overgiver that gave way more than I wanted to be liked,
Mm-hmm.
And never really pans out the way you think in your head when you do that. So I was bitter and resentful to everyone I had helped, and didn't even want to let anybody help me. And also just felt really like my ego was bruised, that I'd failed so hard. So I just secluded myself, didn't tell anyone how much trouble I was in. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I remember this one night, I was just so mad at my ex. I was raging inside. And I remember I actually Googled the words, how to make your ex-boyfriend cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt, and the, you know, the results showed up in the search engine, and most of the things were like, how to have the relationship you want, and all these things. I was so ashamed of myself. Like, I am the worst human being. I just, not like how to get revenge, not how to get him back, not like how to make him want you back, like how to make him cry. Like, what kind of evil human have I become? Like, what am I doing? And I'm like, I'm still making it about him. I'm here hating him. Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So it was a really scary time in my life, because it kind of started to hit me that I wasn't all that nice, that the things I did to be nice, I did to be liked. And then if I couldn't be liked, then I turned kind of evil. I didn't like who I was. And I started doing personal development for my own good. I started listening to Tony Robbins and Jerry and Esther Hicks. They do the Abraham Hicks. And it was a whole bunch of gibberish at first. Like, the worst one was when they were trying to tell me I needed to be grateful to make my way off my way up the emotional tone scale. And I'm like, I'm sleeping in my car. I'm freezing. I'm hungry. I'm broke. I'm alone. I'm miserable. I've got to be grateful. That's my way out of this. Well, I'm going to die here. Like, there's just no way out, because there's no gratitude here. And I will never forget the night where things really changed for me, because I'd go in and out of like crying, and then trying to do the personal development thing, and the journaling, and the trying to forgive. And then it was like this up and down. It was definitely not a smooth sailing. It was like, I'm going to change my life. I hate my life. I'm going to change my life. I hate my life. And this one night I was just sitting in my car, and I was crying, like really like sobbing like a small child. And I remember getting to like the end of my tears, when you're kind of in that like, you know,
Yeah.
and my eyes like glazed over, and I just had nothing left. And I'm like looking out the window, and I'm looking up through the sky roof of my car, and there's these huge snowflakes falling. And I catch this one snowflake, and it's falling, and I don't know why this happened, but it's as if it caught my soul. I just started to feel like a warm feeling in my heart, like a gratitude, I guess, that I had caught the snowflake the way it was. Like, there was no other way I would ever see a snowflake falling that way, if I wouldn't have been in the car, if I wouldn't have been. And all of a sudden, it's like my feelings about life started to change. And I started crying, not because I was miserable, but because all of a sudden I like got a moment of gratitude. I hadn't felt anything beautiful in a very long time at this point. And it kind of hit me like, I'm looking too far. Like, I'm looking too far for the things to be grateful for. And, you know, you said at the beginning of this interview, I find really simple things, and then I say them, and it's like they're life-changing. But that was my experience. It was like the most life-changing thing was the simplest thing in my life. You know, instead of trying to find these big grandiose things to be grateful for, it was just like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it started a habit in my life of just looking for the beauty in things, and looking for the meaning in things, and finding the simplicity in things, because I do think we tend to overcomplicate life a lot. We look for meaning, and we look for significance, and we look for love so far out of us that we miss it. Like, it's right there. So I started living my life a lot more matter of fact, and a lot more intentionally, instead of looking so far out before I could be grateful for things. Actually looking a lot closer, like in the little things, in the smell of the coffee, in the look, you know, the way that the light pierces through the trees, or the snowflake falling, or the one beautiful thing. Like, I started really finding the one beautiful thing in the simplest things in my life, and my life started to change really fast. In my heart, in my feelings, in the way people responded to me, it started to change. And just one day, a friend called me, and she was having a hard time, and I don't know what happened, but I gave her feedback. I gave her, you know, what I'd been doing for myself. And she called me back, and she's like, you've changed my life. I don't think you understand what you did for me in that call. You should be a coach. And I was like, what's a coach? And she's like, a coach, like what you did for me. And, you know, I knew speakers, authors. I didn't even know what a coach was. I Googled it, and I was like, you don't even need a certification for this. I was like, I can't do this. I'm sleeping in my car. Like, how could I be like, I just can't. So I told her, I can't do this. So she called me back. She's like, I've got a friend that wants to hire you. What are your rates? You know, what do you charge? I was like, I can't charge. There's just no way. But during my journey, something really traumatic happened, and I was recommended to see like a woman, a seer, basically. Didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen anyone like this before, but she basically told me like my purpose on the planet. I'm sleeping in my car. I don't believe in any of this stuff. I don't even understand personal development. I don't even know what a coach is. This woman's telling me I'm going to change the world where the mountain meets the ocean. I'm like, oh my God, what have I just paid for? I was hoping to go in for a healing session. I walked out, threw her card away, was so mad. But I had paid $100 for that session, like over food, over anything. You know, the paycheck came in, I paid for the session. And I was so mad about it. And I was like, if I paid her for that, people could pay me $100. So that's what I decided to charge it first. And it just started a word of mouth business. People just started to pay referrals, and I paid a commission to the people who referred me, and actually built a 6-figure business up the front seat of my Honda. No website, no social media, no nothing. Started traveling in my car, and, you know, met my partner and started building my business. And in this was in 2013, 2017, the Alpha Femme brand started. Social media, all the things. 2018, we had our first $1 million year, and now it's a $1 million a month plus business. I don't understand it most days, and I'm grateful beyond belief for what happened.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I've been in your energy, I guess. So I had worked, my one-on-one coach was Erin Nicole Porter.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she had worked with you a couple of years ago. And obviously that's when I was working with her. And she must have posted something or maybe said that she was working with a coach. And so I was like, oh, who is your coach? And she said your name. And so I immediately was like, okay. Like went to your Instagram or Facebook. It was probably Facebook at the time. Yeah. And just started like downloading your content. I was like, oh my gosh. And it's just, again, it's just so profound. I've listened to your story numerous times, and, I was even thinking, I'm like, wow, Kelly, like today, just being in the podcast mindset, I'm like, how many times do all of these, guests that I'm having on here share their story? But there's so much power. There's so much power in their story. I mean, that's why I want everybody to share their story. I mean, I'm huge on sharing my story too. I get raw, I get vulnerable. I'm the girl who shares too much, quote unquote, with people, but I'm like, that's who I am. That's what makes me me. And that's what people connect with too. So yeah, it's like a healing thing. But no, thank you so much for sharing that. And I've witnessed you hit these $1 million months. I mean, I'm like, and what's so neat about it, I know obviously that there are women out there that get triggered by that. They, but what you have created, and I know that there are some women that probably still get triggered, whatever, that are kind of in your energy. However, it's like you've been able to separate that because of the amount of gratitude that you have and the amount of celebrating that you do. And you've created such a compound and a community of women across the world who celebrate your wins as if they were their own. And I think that's remarkable. So thank you for that.
Well, that's a big piece of it. Like I know I'll never be able to make everyone feel good. It's impossible to do that. Like no one on the planet has figured out that. So, if that were my goal, I'd just be miserable. I can't. I've really got to focus on the people that I light up. And, this business that I built, I often tell my clients, you're going to wonder how to do it until you wonder how you did it, because it's just going to hit you one day. You'll have done it. You'll be like, how on earth did this happen like this? Because it's one step at a time, one day at a time, one human at a time, one yes at a time, one struggle at a time, one success at a time, one moment at a time. And then all of a sudden it's this huge story that looks like it couldn't have been built any other way. But I do everything I do with as pure of intention as possible. And my goal, what I really want, is to just, at every step of the journey for women who are doing this work, to just, there's always a beacon of light on the mountain with you, wherever you are. Because I remember starting this journey, and when I first found out about coaches in the online space and looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, like, where do I even start? And I know that there's women who come into my world who've never actually, don't even know where to begin yet. And they're just starting. And I love being able to connect with women who are just starting and show, like, I started charging $100 an hour sleeping in my car, and now this is this. So, but there's also something to be said about, you're making $100,000 a month. What next? Right. Do you have to automate? Is it true that you've got to make everything automated? You have to have a big fancy website and a funnel. And it's like, I still to this date don't have a website or use funnels or, automation or anything like that. Everything is really organic and heart-centered and heart-led. So I feel like I have a very unique example in the marketplace that I show what's possible. And for people who love that, I'm right there shining. And for people who don't love that, there's so many other ways to do it. And it's like, if we can just be super responsible with what activates us, we always find what we need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, to speak on that, I had to personally, so I had gotten myself in debt and I was doing the coaching thing, but I was out of alignment there for a while, showing up in the people pleasing, just not, and I felt like it, it was like, as soon as I decided after working with Aaron, honestly, like I had been health coaching for a few years prior to, but I never really had a niche. I just like was, oh, here's stuff. Whoever wants to work with me, come work with me. And I help people, but I never really truly felt like super aligned because I wasn't working necessarily with my soulmate client.
Right.
Then I worked with Aaron and, a lot of things, obviously I healed. I had so much transformation. I was like, I have to do what you're doing. And, obviously because she learned from you too, a lot of stuff was probably channeled through her too, from you as well. But yeah, I mean, once I like started like tuning into you as well, and again, yeah, and all the things of like everyone in the coaching space or even like network marketing, it's like, oh, we have to be doing it this way. We have to have this. We should be doing this. We should. And I'm like, no, it's so much bullshit, because I too, when I was in debt and no coaching clients were coming in, I was just trying to like base it off of like, it's coming. I'm trusting that it's coming. I transitioned from like the health to more of the business and mindset coaching space myself. And to be honest, yeah, it had a lot of challenges, a lot of resistance, because I couldn't really like, Erin was always like, Kelly, you have like one foot on the ledge of the pool and the rest of your body is like in. She's like, just unlatch that toe from the other side of the pool. I'm like, I know. But I didn't have a website either. I ran a whole program through a Facebook group just like you did, or just like you do. And I was like, nothing had to be automated. Like the only thing that I had was like, go to the link in my bio to like, give me your email address or like join my Facebook community. Like that was it. And yeah, and I was able to create the impact and the income that I wanted to at that time, So now, yeah, I may have some like systems in place, but it's just because it's just easier for me. It gives me more joy.
Like,
yeah. So, but yeah, I love that you say that. And it's so true. We always get so caught up in I should be doing this. Everyone's doing this. I need to be doing that. It's like, no, just get centered with what you want to do and what brings you joy and happiness.
It's the thing, like every single person on the planet brings out the best in certain people. We're an energetic match for certain people effortlessly. If you're willing to just be who you are and do your best, you're going to be an energetic match for certain people. It's when you're trying to people please, it's very difficult for the universe, for God to like cap to what your vibration is and send you an energetic match. It's like, what are you a match for? I can't even tell. Yeah. So when you can really commit to being who you are and to trust that things are coming, it is difficult sometimes to find a consistent match. But what I found is if you're okay with it, not everybody is going to like you, but the people who are going to really stand for what you stand for, they're going to love you. And then you can really build things one human being at a time, one relationship at a time, one moment at a time. You make it matter. You make it count. It's actually quite shocking what happens. You don't need, I remember when I first started in the online world, people were saying like, in order to make $1 million a year in a business, you need 100,000 people on an email list. I didn't even have an email list. You want to make $1 million, you need 100,000 people on an email list. I'm like, that is never going to happen. Mm-hmm. We had our $1 million year with 284 clients. It's like, it's not about the numbers. And I think, or it's not that it's not about the numbers, it doesn't have to be about the numbers. Mm-hmm. If your mind loves the numbers and you love the logic and you love the crunching the math and the lead gen and all that, then you're going to love it and it's going to work for you. I personally don't even get that stuff. So if that's how I've got to do it, it's most probably I'm going to fail, or I've got to spend thousands of dollars hiring a team that can do that for me because I don't know how to do it. But when I just went with my heart and what I know, I found so many people who are an energetic match for that. And I feel like I really created a whole new way that people really love. And a lot of people calibrate to the beliefs I have about social media and use my energetic foundation basically to create a lot of wealth and a lot of easy structures in their businesses. And it's done really well. But before I did it this way, people would have told me it was impossible. So there's a whole bunch of new ways that haven't been discovered yet that seem impossible until someone does it. So is it really just impossible, or has it just not been done?
Right. because everyone's telling you what you should be doing, and this is the way it has to be done. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so backing up to when you were in your car and creating this business, you didn't have anything online, and it was all word of mouth.
Yeah.
You were referred to as the silent coach. Is that
The
correct?
invisible
The
coach.
invisible coach.
Like,
That's right.
you know the movie Hitch with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was all personal power and communication and relationships. So it was like helping women really take their power back in, like, if they had been in a relationship where they didn't have the power to leave, or if they weren't able to communicate what they really needed and what they desired from their partners, or like how to claim their energy back and really find their confidence. Like I didn't teach anything about money. I didn't teach anything about business. I didn't teach anything about that until my business started generating money and I started understanding money energetics. For the longest time, it was just, personal resiliency, radical self-responsibility, empowerment. Like, that was the vibe.
I love that. I love that. How did you said that you had just kind of like started going into personal development and like educating yourself. So can you share like what were some of those personal development tools or maybe resources, books, I guess, to learn more about the relationship? And I know you're huge on like the feminine and masculine energy. So
Yeah. So my first ever resource was when I Googled how to make your ex-boyfriend cry. And it was this program. It was like how to have the relationship you want. And when I started reading about it, what shocked me really was how little I knew about being a woman.
yeah.
And so then I started doing research about like hormones and actual like psychology, feminine energy, masculine energy. Then I found, when I was looking for energy, is when I found Jerry and Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks. And then I started going deeper into relationships. I found Tony Robbins because he had some relationship stuff and he had some free stuff about relationships. I had read a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus that blew my mind. Why Men Love Bitches also blew my mind. But really the majority of the transformational work that I did, and this is something I realized very early on, was that if I just did what the book said, it might work for me, but I couldn't just say what the book said for a client. Like, that immediately felt to me. Like, I could feel it in my body. It was just like, you can't sell that. So it became really important that I embodied everything I read.
Yeah.
And eventually it kind of became like I could embody more without having to read more. What if I embodied more? And that's when I started realizing that there was a channel, because then I would start to do the work to embody it. And then it's like another consciousness would come through, a stream of ideas and words would come out of my mouth. And I was like, where is this coming from? And when I started to listen to the channel, it's like I had this, like, I guess it was a thought. It was like a voice that wasn't mine that said, if it's coming through you, it's for you. So I started listening to the channel like it was like a coach for me. So everything that I channeled, I journaled, I studied it until I mastered it. And once I mastered it, I sold it. So a lot of the work that I have now is like the voice that comes through. I really embody it. And once it's made an impact on my life, then I teach it. And if ever it's something that I've learned in a Tony Robbins event or in a book or whatever, I love to give the recommendation of where I learned it. But if I don't have a story about how it changed my life, you probably won't hear about it. I won't just tell you about the chapter I learned. There's a story about how that chapter changed my life, or I don't like to share other people's stuff because it gets a little muddy, like what's yours. And then, so there's always a story about how it changed my life. It's going to be something I've learned somewhere else. But a lot of it is this channel now that comes through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the, term like regurgitation, like you don't do that. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. And, again, I've studied so much under, a lot of your master classes. I have not had the chance to be a part of like Alpha Femme or Femme Fatale, some of your programs, but your master classes have just blown my socks off every single time. And you have like I said, you have a way with words that just hits people right in their gut, in their emotions. And it's like, you just feel, because of the work that you do, like we feel it. And that is what is life changing. You create the impact. And when I make the investment, I'm making it in you at some point, because you're on my bucket list of people to thrive under.
Awesome.
You are.
So, because you thrive with, not under.
Yeah, thrive with. Yes, exactly. Yes, calibrate with. Exactly. Okay, so how okay, so once you started to learn the energy of money, that's when you started teaching about it.
Not
So
even.
how did you tell us that story?
So quite a story. So I had been super triggered by women who were teaching about money because I was seeing people who were earning less than me teaching about money. And I just couldn't come to teach about money. I just couldn't talk about it. 10K, 20K, 30K, 40K a month, could not talk about money, could not talk about money, couldn't talk about money. And I'm at like a 50K month. And I have a client of mine that's telling me about this money program she's considering buying. And I don't know why I said it, but I said, oh, I have a money program coming. And she's like, oh, when? And I was like, in 2 weeks. And she's like, oh, cool. Let me know. And I want to hear about it. And I was like, yeah. And I hung up with her and I was like, why did I say that? I do not have a money program, very much less in 2 weeks from now. Plus I had just for the first time in a very long time scheduled a week vacation with my family and I wanted to be off. Like, why did I do this to myself? So I was just, I'm like, why did I say that? So I was like trying to sit with myself. Like, was I just triggered that she was wanting to buy someone else's money program? I'm like, I've seen this happen so many times. Why would I say this now? Like, I don't have a money program. So I was kind of freaking out about it a little bit. And I said to Kevin, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I said that. And he was like, why don't you just sit with it and see what happens? So we went on vacation with my family, and halfway through the vacation, in the middle of the night, I woke up one night and I was like, something's coming. Like, I can feel I've got to sit down and write. Because often for me, it wakes me up in the night and I've got to write. If it's in the day, I can just speak it, but at night it feels like I've got to write it. So I woke up and it felt like I could feel something huge was coming. So I woke Kevin up and I was like, Kevin, you got to wake up because I've got something like I've got to talk about. I need you to type it. I need you to like wake up. It was like 3:00 in the morning. We'd had drinks. It was not a fun time to be woken up at 3:00 in the morning, but he woke up and I just started talking and this program started coming out and it came out 4 nights in a row, chunks of 3 hours. And he just wrote it and wrote it and wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And it was like, I have a money program. And I was like, how did this happen? So during that week, I just kind of relaxed and was like, okay, let me just see. I don't know what to call it. I don't really have time to market it. At this point, launches for me were like a month, I never launched anything short term. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And the thought was just like, follow the money program to sell the money program. Mm-hmm. So I like went through it again and just decided to sell it. And the name for it came through, Exponential Wealth. And I was like, okay. And I sold the money. I did a webinar for it. I'd never done that before. It was just like a Zoom masterclass basically that I did for a few people. And from like the few that signed up, over 50% of people bought it. I sold like 33 spots. And on the back end, I sold a mastermind and I had $150,000 a month the month I channeled that program.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is incredible. And every month I just made more and more and more. And I ran this program every 2 or 3 months and I took myself through it over and over and over again. And I continue to, every time I lead it, I take it and I skyrocket my income every single time I take this program. And it's gotten sharper and sharper because I run it live. Like, it's gotten sharper every time I run it. Honestly, like, it blows my mind. I'm so grateful for this channel because, again, like, it came through me, but I've continued to learn from it over and over and over again. And I sharpen it with the new skills and the new downloads that come through for me. But like, this program has helped my clients generate hundreds of thousands of dollars, and for me now millions of dollars. Like, like in Canadian dollars was $1.7 million month in December, $1.4 million in January in Canadian dollars, so like 1.3 or 1.4 in December and in US dollars. It's like, these numbers don't make sense. It doesn't make sense on paper. It doesn't make sense, but it's the energetics of money. Yeah. And the energetics aren't meant to make sense. They just make money.
Right. Because that's the match that you're giving out to the universe, and the universe doesn't make sense. It makes total sense, but none.
Universe makes dollars, not cents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, every masterclass when you're speaking, I've listened to a handful of your masterclasses when it comes to the relationship that, intimate partner relationships, but then obviously the relationship with money. And I mean, my overarching theme is the feminine and masculine energy. They both, like, it's like you have become an expert in the field of feminine and masculine energy. And it's like you know and understand and obviously channel this stuff to everyone, that it's just that balance of like having that balance. And I've learned so much, in how to, I guess, show up in relationships because of that. And, embodying, you had said one time during a masterclass, this was maybe like 2 years ago, but you were engaging with your audience, and someone had commented like, oh, my husband makes me feel blah, 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 blah. And you responded, okay, well, remove your husband from the scenario. Do you still feel X, Y, and Z? And the woman responded, yeah, actually I do. And so you were like, you have to build your foundation, and like your partner is just that like decoration to your foundation. But as soon as you start to let that foundation crumble, everything can crumble.
I love that you remember that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It was amazing. I think I was dating someone at the time, and I like ran out and I was like, I got to make sure this is sturdy because I don't want this to crumble. And he was like, what?
Awesome.
Yes. So yes, I feel like certain messages, obviously through all your master classes, I'm like, yes, like the whole ocean wave with the feminine and masculine energy with I guess you were talking about the surfing. So if you're like going out to surf and like come back, and yeah, it was great. Do you mind sharing? Yeah. Do you mind sharing that analogy with us about the surfing?
Hawaii last year. So this is fun with my master classes. They come at like the perfect aligned time when I'm like doing something in the moment. But so the one about surfing, I think it was what I was explaining is when you go out to surf, you get into the water, you've got your surfboard. The first while you're going out into the water, you're not having a lot of fun. Like you've got to get the board out into the water. There's resistance there. And you can't just decide you want to be on a wave, although you might want to be on a wave. You can't just be on a wave. You've got to get to the place where the fun place is, where the wave is. So the first thing is you've got to align yourself and get yourself into the fun zone, which however talented you are may become easier with time, but at first it's not great. Now you've got to carry the surfboard out into the ocean. Once you get there, there are the waves that start rolling. So there's different pieces of the puzzle when you're surfing. The first thing is you've got to learn like when to get on the wave. When is the right timing to get on the wave? And once you get on it, there's this feeling like you're held, like you're supported for a moment. And I'm not sure if this, because I've realized I did two surf analogies, so this isn't the one. Tell me if it's the other one. But once you get on the surfboard, there's this feeling like you're supported and you're held by the water. Mm-hmm. In our lives, it's kind of like that. You're going to get on your move, whichever move it is that you're going to do. And if your timing isn't right, if your alignment isn't right, even if you get on the board, even if you take the surfboard out into the water, you do all the actions, you do all the moves. If you get on the surfboard before the water's holding you, before the feminine energy trust has kicked in, you're going to fall off the board. You're not going to ride the wave. And once you're on the board, if the water is holding you and you feel that there's like a moment where it kind of hugs you back for a second. You're like feel the board hug you for a minute, and like the board has got me, the water has got me, you feel it. There's a very similar feeling in business where all of a sudden you feel it, like I'm held, I'm supported. It's learning to learn those energetics just the same as on a surfboard with the water. It's like the inner feminine energy knowing of like, this is the moment. I can feel it. I'm held. So when you're teaching someone how to surf, it's hard to explain to them. There's going to be a moment where you're going to feel held by the water. There's going to be a moment you're going to tell the board is held, you're held, and it's going to hold you. You're going to know. How do you explain that to someone who's never surfed before? And it's the same energetics you've got to explain to someone in business. Like eventually when you do these launches, you're going to feel it in your body. The energy's got you. You're going to feel it in your body. You're in alignment. You're going to feel it. This is the moment for the pitch. This is the moment for the conversation. This is the moment. But you've got to learn to surf the waves before, and it'll take you as far as you're meant to go, and then you'll fall off. Or you'll jump off because you're afraid of whatever it is. And it's the same thing in business. People are like, I wish I would have had 40 people in my program, but I only had 13. Well, I wish I would have gone 20 feet on that wave and I only went 3, Right. Eventually you get better. Eventually you're supported longer eventually, but you just got to keep getting back on the surfboard and trusting that you do the masculine energy steps. You got to take your board out. You got to wait for the right wave. You got to get on the board at the perfect timing. You got to stay on it and balance it. Those are the masculine energy things. But then there's the trust the feeling, the inner knowing. You got to quiet your mind to find, and it's the same thing in business.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, that was the surfing analogy I was talking about. It's so good. And can you elaborate a little bit more just on the feminine and masculine? Like, what is that difference to the listener who's like, what? Because that's how I was when I first, I mean, Erin was the one to actually introduce me to the feminine energy. And I was like, holy, what? I've been living my life. No wonder I'm so burnt out and exhausted and want to just go wave my white flag in the air and surrender. I'm done. So yeah.
I hear a lot from people now when I hear people talk about masculine and feminine. I think it's misunderstood because neither of it is bad. Like, we need all of it.
Right.
It's the yin and yang. It's completion. It's all. You can't just be feminine energy and you can't just be masculine energy. Mm-hmm. Men are not masculine energy and women are feminine energy. It's not a male female thing. It's literally two energies. Right. So a masculine energy is a very forward energy. So if you imagine yourself leaning forward, everything you've got to do, everything you've got to say, everything you've got to do it with your human. Like, you got to do it. So there's a lot of things like that. Mm-hmm. And when I speak about the Alpha Femme, I talk about a trifecta: the boss, the badass, and the goddess. Well, the badass has got a lot of stuff to do. Like, you've got kids. You can't just lean back and pray for the lunches to get made. Like, you got to open the fridge. You got to make the sandwiches. You got to put your kids in the bathtub. You got to sit down and do the homework. There are masculine energy things that are required. All the things that you've got to do. Mm-hmm. Now, doing is done with a result in mind. So masculine energy is very often done with a result in mind. I do this for this. So when we are in masculine energy, we're often doing things for a result. It's like the easiest way to describe it. So you're doing things for a result, you're in masculine energy. If you are experiencing something, being something, feeling something, receiving something, you're in feminine energy. So if you imagine, your body would immediately feel more leaned back as you experience that. You're receiving it. It's happening for you. You're breathing in, you're receiving, it's happening for you. So you could go to the gym to build muscle. That would be masculine energy. You could do yoga to breathe. It would be feminine energy. Mm-hmm. You could go to yoga in order to make your body look a certain way. Then you're going to yoga in masculine energy. You could go to the gym just to blow off steam and end up doing it in feminine energy. So it's not what you do. A lot of women think, I was in feminine energy all day. I ran myself a bubble bath and I had a pedicure. But you could actually do those things in masculine energy if you keep wondering if you're doing it right or you're thinking of a million other things at the same time. Yeah. So it really is the energy of receiving is the feminine energy. So where we start to see the magic in the balance is, for example, you're an online coach. You do a launch, you've got a sequence, you do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. You do a Facebook Live, you do a master class, you promote your thing, you do it. Once you've done that, you've then got to get paid for it. If your feminine energy is not in check, you will not let yourself lean back to receive. Mm-hmm. You'll keep thinking you haven't done enough, that you've got to do more. You will over promote, you'll over talk about it, you'll burn yourself out. You'll do 1 million masterclasses, 1 million lives, 1 million posts, nonstop selling. And there's no space for people to breathe. And there's no space for you to receive. So I will often see women who are in very masculine energy doing, and constantly being like, what else do I do? I've got 2 days left for this launch. What else do I do? Where often I'll do a masterclass and then you won't hear me talk about my program again until the program starts. Mm-hmm. And people are like, but don't you say anything? And I'm like, no, the people who are there, they watch the masterclass. They know if they want to buy it. Right. Like, what? But what if they don't buy it? What if they forget? I'm like, I believe in people and their power, that if someone wanted to do this, that they will take the masculine energy step. If I desire someone to lean into my world in masculine energy, then I've got to create a space for that. So I've got to lean back. If I want people to be thinking about it and receiving more information and being around me and being inspired, then I can be in masculine energy and they'll receive it all in feminine energy. But then I'll get messages like, you're so inspiring. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for everything you do, which is perfect match. But that's no money. For the money to come in, I've got to be in feminine energy. There's got to be a flip where now the clients actually do something about it. Like, I've received all this information. Now I want to buy it. Now they've got to go into masculine energy. So it's learning this energetic dance of trusting the people that come into your world. that you don't have to put them in a corner and push them until if they don't say yes, they're going to miss out, but instead empower that the people who are a good match for it, they will use their own aligned energy to be like, yes, now it's time for me to make a move here. So I believe in this constant ebb and flow and this dance of my people that are drawn to me, that are like, some moments they're plugging into the source and they're receiving from me. And other times they're coming in masculine energy and they're claiming their place and they're saying, I'm coming in for my own transformation. And it's always aligned timing and it's always perfect. And I trust, and it always comes on time because I understand this balance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I've learned, I mean, I would say I would learned a lot of that from you as well. Just trusting and knowing that they're coming to you. You know, I used to do network marketing back in the day, and, you know, their whole sales pitch is go and DM a bunch of people and all that. And I'm just like, and I just like, no, that doesn't feel good for me. And it's not the belief system of like sales is icky. I'm beyond that. It was the fact I just like, I'm not going to chase people, especially if they're, you know, I love, like you always use the term like compound leadership, like creating that compound leadership. And that's exactly what I'm out here to create. Like my energy alone is going to attract who is meant to work with me, period. And that's what I mean, from the show, you know, I was on Love is Blind, like from the show, I'll be honest, I did start to like go back into a lot of those past behaviors of like people pleasing, because I had all these hundreds of thousands of eyes on me. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know what to do. It was like an overwhelming amount of energy that I didn't know what to do with, because I didn't know how to handle. I didn't know. I didn't know. And it has taken me over the last year to really, really step back into it. And what you were saying earlier is like, if you're not really like in, kind of like, if you're not in the alignment, if you're not being that energetic match, that's when things can just be like so chaotic and things aren't working, and why isn't it working? And you get in that headspace. And I was there, and it's, you know, over the last year I've been there because I launched a program, and it was, I knew as soon as I did something different, and I was like, that wasn't right. And I knew it and I felt it. And I was like, but we're going to keep rolling with it. And whatever's supposed to happen is supposed to happen. And if it's not a quote unquote successful launch this time, it is what it is. I know why.
Right.
And, you know, be more aligned for next time. But no, I thank you for sharing all of that. Feminine masculine. I just love it. So, okay. I wanted to ask you about your Kevin, your
Kevin.
love. Yes. Can you share your story about Kevin? Because I think that's another just absolutely remarkable story.
Yes. So one thing that's really interesting is that I had met Kevin in my prior life when I was very much in masculine energy. So I very much wanted to help my family in a very people-pleasing way, and went above and beyond to help and do the good girl thing to help my family. But I felt very resentful and bitter that I was doing it also, and very stressed because I made big promises to try to help everybody feel safe, which caused me to be very stressed because then I'd make promises that I had to deliver on. And again, it was a job where I was 100% self-employed. So if I didn't make money, there was just no money. And Kevin was the manager of all of Canada. So my partner at the time was the manager of Montreal, and Kevin was the manager of all of Canada when I met him. And I just remember I wanted to be admired, you know, masculine energy. I wanted to be admired, adored. I wanted to get everything I wanted, to make it easy so that I could hit my goals, so that I could help my family, so I could be the good person. Like that, as long as that happened, I was happy. But anything that would get in the way of that, my stress would come in, the fear of not getting the results, the masculine energy, the bossiness, the charging, like all that would come out. And he did not like that at all. We have 11 years difference. So I'd have been like 22 and he was 33 when we met. And I'm this bossy kid to him. And, you know, the way the company was built, I made a lot more money than he did from selling than he made on a commission from managing me. So he watched me make all this money, like signing my paychecks, watching me make all this money, complaining and fighting and pushing for money. And he was just so annoyed by me. And he was putting all these blocks out of ego, out of just not wanting me to be right, out of whatever it was. And I could see that. So I was mad at him. He was mad at me. We did not like each other. Now, after life has changed, I've learned a lot about energetics, feminine, masculine energy. I'm learning my ways. And this is not even about just romantic relationships. It's just how women and men clash and collide. Why is it that you can have a woman and a man just get along so well, and then a woman and a man like fight tooth and nail? Like, what creates that? So I had really gotten into the energy of learning all this. And my friend Emmanuelle, who is now the COO of my company, she was the manager for Toronto in that company. And she called me, and my life is falling to pieces. Like, life is just not good. But she says, we need someone to learn this product. You want to come to Toronto? So I was going to have a place to sleep. It was going to be perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. 20 minutes out of Toronto. She's like, by the way, the person who's going to train you on this, Kevin Scott. I've been driving for like 5 hours. She tells me 20 minutes out. Just gives you an idea. She's like, I knew if I told you before, you might turn. Oh my gosh. I don't like this guy. And I'm already really emotional, and my life isn't going well. And I really don't want to be bullied. And I'm really not happy. And I am seething all the way to the front door. And I can feel all the old energies coming back. I'm mad. I can already feel myself wanting to open the door and be an ass. Like, I could feel it all in my body. And I got to the front door. I put my hand on the door, and just something in my body said, why don't you just try the new energetics that you know? Maybe it'll change something. Never in a million years that I think would be involved romantically. To me, he's an old dude. He's a pain in my butt. Like, there's nothing there. But I was different when I opened the door. And we ended up working together for a few days. And he was like, you are different. What is up with you? Like, what have you been up to? And just started sharing in all this new way of being. And he just was completely mesmerized by everything I had to say. Like, I'd never seen anybody look at another person the way he was looking at me. Like, he was so interested in everything I said. Like, when you think masculine, feminine energy, he was so leaned forward. He'd like watch me like I was speaking. He just wanted to know everything. And it was just such a cool feeling. And at that time, I was seeing multiple people. I was like learning to date. It was such an interesting dynamic in my life. And I had told him, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking to meet the man of my dreams and to really find the man for me. So I'm not actually settling down in a relationship or testing anybody. Like, I'm seeing people, and that's it. And I kind of explained what my journey was. And one day he was like, what happens if I ever wanted to enter this dating realm of yours? And I basically told him, I was like, as long as it feels good and I'm happy, then it's great. And if ever I don't feel good, I cut you loose. That's all. And he was like, okay. And I started dating, as part of this, almost an experiment for myself to stop with the codependency and to really see what my boundaries were in relationships. But it just kept feeling like every time my phone went, I hoped it was him. And I could just feel there was something real strong for him. And within a few months, he was just like, okay, I'm really done with you seeing other people. Like, I want this. I want us to be a thing. And I just knew it was him. And we went exclusive at that point for me. Like, I wasn't seeing anybody else. And I just was so in love with him. And I built my business. He supported me as much as he could in his job, made sure I could go to all the events. He paid for my Tony Robbins stuff. Like, he took care of me like so much in the beginning. I just took care of my dreams. Like, they were his own. And one day he left the job and came into my world, and life just started to build and build and build. And the year we got engaged, we had our first $1 million year. And it's like, the better our relationship gets, the better the business gets. And it's just this like magical, the more it works, the more it all works kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And he coaches now too, right?
Yeah. He coaches men. He mostly focuses on his brand is a masculine expansion. He helps men really deepen their understanding of the feminine. Not to be feminine men, but to understand the feminine so they can hold space for powerful women without being triggered and upset, and how to be a supportive partner for alpha women, like how to be an alpha personality and a strong man, and to not fight with a woman who's strong, but rather to learn that balance so that you can coexist and thrive as a partner when she's in her feminine and he's in his masculine, when he's in his feminine and she's in her masculine. There's always a balance, and that we can be all of ourselves, because powerful women do have a stronger masculine, but that feminine part is so important. And without the men able to navigate, we're either ending up with very, very, very feminine men, or very, very, very angry men. So in order to find one that's just this supportive, masculine and balanced feminine source, it takes so much power, and that's what he does. He helps men really embody that. So he does a lot of amazing work with men.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. I'm like, my next boyfriend, he might be having some words with Kevin. That's amazing. Can you give us an example of, in times when you and Kevin do have, a challenge or a conflict, or, is it always so peaceful with you guys, or do you guys just know how to communicate, and what does that communication look like when you are in what could turn into an argument in a normal couple, quote unquote?
Yeah. Now we really don't, because it's just the knowing of one another is so profound. Like we know each other. It's like, and this work has become a big part of our relationship too. So it's like everything's an opportunity to discuss. It's kind of intense, but
I love it.
It's like, it's also very different than most couples because it's our work. Like this is the work. So it's such a huge piece of the focus that for it to get away from us and it to be an actual blown out fight would mean we both took our eye off the ball, and it doesn't happen. One of us might be in a mood, but then the other one wouldn't know what to do. So it never escalates. In order for a fight, two people need to get in a mood, which never happens for us. Because if one person's in a mood, the other one knows what to do because we know what to do. But before, when we weren't quite as proficient in it, it would happen where we would like have an argument or something like that. But usually what would happen is the fixing energy. So this has been one of the biggest breakthroughs in relationships for me, is this, like, whenever you want to fix a person, whether it's your husband, your wife, your kids, whenever they're upset and you want to fix it, it's not about them. It's because you don't like to watch them sad. So it's a super selfish thing to want to fix a person's emotions. And that's the last thing on earth I ever would have thought, because I was the person who wanted everybody to be happy. So I will do anything. How can I fix it? How can I fix it? Thinking I was being very kind and very nice. But in fact, it's based on my inability to hold the fact that you're not in a bad mood. I wanted to have a good night tonight. You're in a bad mood. How do I fix it so I can have a good night? This is Christmas Day. I wanted us to have a beautiful Christmas. You're having a bad day. How do I fix it so I can have a good Christmas? It's always actually a very selfish thing. It's a very fix it masculine doing in order to fix response instead of a connection opportunity. So for both Kevin and for me, when there was a moment of sadness or upset, to actually learn to be with my partner or for him to be with me instead of trying to fix it has been the biggest transformational thing, because it basically never works to try to fix someone's feelings unless they're not very close to you. If you have a friend who you still got a lot of, like, you want to save face and she's like, come on, let me change your vibe. Then you're like, okay, fine. Like, you're going to let that, this isn't really real, I'm going to let you in kind of vibe. But if it's your mother and she's like, come on, and you're like, look, I've told you, like, you're not just going to fix it like this, leave me alone. You're going to tell your partner, just leave me alone. You can't just fix it. The people you actually are truthful with, you won't let them fix it because it feels like they're trying to bypass your feeling. It doesn't work. So that was, I think, the biggest transformation for me in relationships.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. When you say just be there for that person, do you mean just being like a listening ear? What is that?
Like, let's say, for example, something really hard happened in my business and I'm disappointed. Let's say your launch that happened where it's not going the way you want and you're feeling really upset about it. And you tell your partner, you're just like, I'm so disappointed about this launch. I'm just like, I put so much effort into it and nobody is buying anything. And he's like, well, look, why don't you go live and why don't you say this? And why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? You're like, you don't understand. Like, it's immediately going to be, and then the anger starts to come in. Like, you think I didn't think of that? Like, you think I'm stupid? Like, I've already tried all that. Like, it's not about that. Now there's separation, there's anxiety, there's upset. If he's like, that really sucks. I know how hard you've worked on this. What do you need?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just need to cry. Let's cry. You want me to put a movie on? You sit here, tell me what you want. Like, I don't need to fix this for me. I'm so sorry you're feeling that. Like, instant validation. Like, that I know how hard you've worked on that. What do you need? Like, what do you want to do tonight? How do you want to, what do you want? Do you need space? You want to talk about it? Like, what do you want? And then I don't know. Okay. Sometimes he would just sit with me in absolute silence. And eventually it would just be like, okay, this is boring. What do I want? But the thing is, if he would give me something to fight against, then I'd end up fighting with him because I really wanted to fight. You know, all the energy inside of anger, it's like now I'd have a place for it to go. So we'd end up fighting.
Yeah.
From him doing his best to be nice, but really not really. He just didn't want me to be uncomfortable because he didn't like it, you know? So it creates this animosity. But when it's like, I can handle you being sad all night. That's the feeling I get from him now. That's so powerful. Like if something's not going right, there's this immediate feeling from him. Like if I were to be sad all night, he'd be okay with that. And whatever it is that I would need, he's up for it. There's not, I can't even be, I'm just so held, like there's nothing. Sometimes just in the knowing of that, the sadness will go.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. That's awesome. Did you ever have, it just came in through me. When you were like going through challenges back in the day, just in regards to family, you know, what was the family dynamic back then? Why were you sleeping in your car? Why weren't you at home?
Well, first thing, my parents, so I'm the eldest of 3 kids. And when I was 12, my parents went bankrupt. And my dad came to me and he was like, I don't have money to put gas in my car. And if we don't put gas in the car, I can't pay for the house. And I was like, so I gave him everything I had in my piggy bank. And he said, please don't tell your mom. Okay. So now I'm terrified that we're not going to be able to pay for the house. My mother doesn't know. I'm like, what if he needs money again? I don't have any money. So I started my first business when I was 12. I started doing this homework service after school, teaching kids English and helping them complete their homework. And I would give all my money to my dad to help. And then, you know, my mom started with a job. So then I would do that. And then we would take the late bus home and I would take my brother and sister home. We would stop at the grocery store and I would buy whatever food I could afford. And I would make dinner and I would do their homework with them and I do their bath and put them to bed. And then my parents would come home, my dad in the middle of the night. My mom usually past 9 p.m. She got a job at Sears. So she worked till 9 and then have to drive home. So by the time she was home, I'd put the kids to bed, fed them, washed them, done all the things. Some nights she'd talk to me. Some nights she was just too upset. She'd just go to bed. I was 12. So I tried very hard to fix the family dynamic. I thought if I was a good girl long enough, if I did all the things, eventually we'd be okay. And then they'd be so grateful and they'd love me and we'd go back to the way things were. But what happened was not that. It's as if it created, because I was constantly wanting the validation and I constantly wanted to be seen and was all like, did you see what I did? And did you see what I did? And did you see what I did? Like the small child looking for validation, it made them feel really guilty. And it created a wedge. So when things started to get better, they actually didn't want to spend time with me. And they started really spending time a lot with my brother and sister, like making up for the time they'd missed. But with me, it was like they just couldn't. So I went from giving everything to then kind of being pushed aside. So I started getting attention from boys and it just filled me. Like I just wanted to be seen. So I would go with the boys that needed help. The boys that felt like the more I was out of their league, the better, because then I felt even more important. And it escalated until, now I'm flunking school. I'm already mad at my parents because of everything we've gone through. And I got into a huge blowout fight with my mom and she said I had to leave the house, which I did. And it really severed a lot for me emotionally when they did that. Cause it's like I gave my entire everything, like from 12 to 16, everything. And then I started to misbehave a little bit and they're kicking me out. Fine. So the relationship was broken. And when I found the guy that I ended up breaking up with, I met him on the back end of a fight with my parents where he swooped me up off my feet and came in like a horse, a white knight on a horse and took care of me. But then he was just as bad. He just had an opportunity to look like a good guy. Men do their best. But he was just a kid as well. So it was this super toxic relationship back and forth, me wanting to find the guy I'd met the first night I'd met him and, trying to wait for that guy to come back for 7 years, which he didn't. But my parents could see he wasn't right for me. And they tried to tell me and I was like, you don't get to tell me anything. Like you don't get to tell me anything. just bitter, mad, angry, and all the while still helping them when I could, and feeling bitter and resentful and upset that I was still helping and I was stuck in all this. And that was the dynamic. So when I lost everything and I'm sleeping in my car and I'm like, they're not going to help me. They've never helped me. I'm here because of them. They're awful. He's the worst. I've given him my whole life. He's cheated. He's lied. He's this. He's the worst. He's the worst of the worst of the worst. And none of my friends care, because unless they need something, they're not going to call me. Right. So they're the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. And I've got a little sister and a little brother that I've been born to protect. There's no way in heck I'm ever going to tell them there's something wrong. So that left me there, bitter, upset, alone, completely lost. And there the journey begins.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I know that resonates a lot with, myself included, but yeah, thank you. Well, before I wrap this up, this has been absolutely amazing. So thank you again for it. But there was something during one of your master classes, again, that I want to touch on. And if you don't mind explaining this. So the feeling thought. Yes, I love the feeling thought. That was probably the biggest lesson that I took from that master class when I took it last year. And can you define what that is and then elaborate on it a little bit? Because I think it'll be really helpful for everyone.
It's actually really, I downloaded, probably, this is so funny, but I did a prosperity codes. I don't know if did you ever take a prosperity codes with me?
I haven't, no, not yet.
So one of the prosperity codes that I did, the first one, the decrypting the receiving sequence, I channeled this energetic poop storm sequence of like how to manifest poop from the quantum field. And I don't think that there is a better way to explain the feeling thought than that like hour or so segment that I take in that. I have had so much feedback off this, and it's so funny and it's so silly, and I don't know why it came out like that, but it's so funny. But the bottom line is this: we have thoughts. We have thoughts. The thoughts on their own don't have much of an impact. They're just thoughts. And they're there. And there's a lot of them, like tens of thousands of thoughts a day, every single day. Like so many thoughts, you couldn't catch them if you tried. There's so many thoughts. You're a thought generating machine. But from time to time, your heart will cap to one of the thoughts and it will make you feel. So you don't catch all the feelings. You'll have 10 million thoughts a day, but a few times, boop, the thought makes you feel. That creates a feeling thought. Mm-hmm. The feeling thought has an energy. When you feel a thought, you can feel it. It has the power to make your cheeks go bright red. It has the power to make your heart go fast. It has the power to give you a knot in your tummy, to make you tense, to make your vibe odd. If someone sees you, like, what did you just think? Like, what just went through your head? What just happened there? Like, your whole vibe will change with a feeling thought, either excited or not. Angry, stressed, mad, sad, scared, whatever it is. So the feeling thought creates energy that we start to oscillate with and radiate with. The feeling thought is not the truth. It's just a feeling thought. It could be about anything, true or false, right or wrong, good or bad, doesn't matter. The feeling thought creates an energy, and that energy radiates out into the quantum field. The quantum field has endless potential in the universe. Like everything that exists in the universe. Everything. But whatever frequency the feeling thought oscillates on starts to intertangle with the quantum field. So when we're talking about manifestation, we're manifesting all the time. Everything we have in our life, manifestation is a co-creation between the human and the universe, between a co-creation between the human and God. It's like how the energetics and the human, how the masculine and the feminine energy collide. Like it's a manifestation. It's what you get when you bring the universe and you together. So you made this together. This is your little baby that you make with the universe. So we're manifesting all day, every day. And how we do that is with feeling thoughts. So when your thought creates a feeling and you stick with the feeling long enough to have it vibrate out into the quantum field, you start to excite the particles that vibrate on the same frequency in the quantum field. So what you want to do is, if the feeling thought is attached to a vibration that you know is good, if it calls in its equivalent in the quantum field, keep feeling it. That if you realize that it's probably attached to something that when it arrives on your doorstep, you're going to wish you could send back, then it's probably a better idea to be like, let me find a better feeling thought.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, we try to create this like super amazing thought. And this is where, in my opinion, people go wrong with manifestation, is they try to say things like, I am a millionaire. I am powerful. I am rich. And it's like, the issue with that is it's a thought, but it's not a feeling thought. As a matter of fact, the feeling that's most often connected to that is like, yes, like, right? So it's like a thought that triggers a bad feeling thought. So it doesn't actually work. So what matters more than a super, super positive thought is a better feeling thought. So if it could be something awful, like I suck at this, I'm terrible, this is never going to work for me. You can already imagine what that feels like in your body. So you're feeling that thought, you're oscillating in the universe, you're putting out vibes in the universe. And then you realize, whoa, I feel bad. This is not what I want to be sending. If you just say, I'm amazing, I'm a millionaire, BS, 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 doesn't change your vibe. But if you say every day, I learned something that makes me better, that feels different.
Mm-hmm.
If you say one day this moment will be a story I'll be proud to tell, oh, that's like a different feeling. If you say one day I'll look back at this moment and I'll be proud of how I handled it, oh, that feels totally different.
Yeah.
If you say I didn't know, that's why I created this, but I know now, oh, that's a different thing. So a better feeling thought. It's not about a better thought. It's a better feeling thought, because you change the feeling, you start to interact with something different in the quantum field. And it's a lot easier to access. So it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, like the simplicity of it all. Sometimes we try to overcomplicate things, but it's like literally just steer it an inch away from the pole you're about to hit. Because as the car moves, an inch turns into quite a lot. Like as distance takes the thought, you're actually going to move the trajectory even further away than you thought. You just needed a millimeter away from the thing you're thinking, just the tiniest little shift. Because with distance and time, you're gonna completely change the trajectory of that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for re-explaining that to me. I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay, so where can everybody find you and download all of your amazingness?
The best way is just to follow me on social media. As I said, I don't have a website. Like I have my alphafemme.com. That's just my water bottles and notebooks and things like that. But I don't have a website. So if you want to stay connected, be my friend on Facebook. I have a free group also, Alpha Femme. But if you're just my friend on Facebook and you follow my Alpha Femme page on Instagram, you'll always know what's up when something's up. Mm-hmm. We have a few things that are available always to jump in and purchase, like the prosperity codes and things like that. If not, it's usually like the next thing that I'm doing, because it's live and it's in the vibe. But if you're connected with me, you'll always know what's coming up next.
Yeah. And are all of your programs live, or some like digital courses that people go through?
So even then, it's not like digital courses, but let's say when we did, so calibration key, final download, prosperity codes, these are things that were done live. Mm-hmm. And you can purchase them and then you get put into the group. So you get to access everything. You get all the workbooks. You get to go through it again. You have the community. All the people are in there. It's just not live, but it's still not on a website. It's in a closed group on Facebook.
Gotcha. Right. For them to go through the videos and everything again.
Yeah. They're self-paced things. We have a few of them now, all new from last year.
Love that. So amazing. So amazing. So I'm going to recap, or not recap, but come back to, just so I didn't leave anyone hanging there with your family now. Where are things? Kind of forgot that part.
It's so amazing. So once I actually realized that my part was responsible for everything, because everyone's part can be responsible for everything. Like you have the power to change everything always. If you want to take full responsibility, you can have it. Mm-hmm. This is what I realized. Like you don't have to take the blame, but if you want to take the responsibility, you can change everything. That was like the most empowering realization of my life. I didn't want to be blamed for everything, so I didn't want to take responsibility for everything. But when I realized if I wanted to, I could, I changed everything. So I have the most incredible relationship with my family. It's out of this world. My brother chose me as the godmother for his daughter. My sister is my right-hand woman in business. She creates all the branding for my brand. She works with my top clients to create their brands. She's a huge part of my business. She's extraordinary. My mom works as part of the brand. She's the one who wraps all the things from the Alpha Femme store and sends them out. She is like the most beautiful energy human in my world. She takes such good care of me. She loves me. She loves the company. My dad is like my biggest fan in life. I I don't understand how things can change so fast, but they can. Like, I understand the feeling of not wanting to take the blame for everything, but when you take responsibility for everything, you change everything. And people change, because I received every apology I could have ever wished for. I received every word I could have dreamed of and beyond when I didn't need it anymore.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah. I'm always saying that, you know, I mean, with family and everything, I'm like, the only person you can control is yourself. That is it. So like, we can't change anybody. And even if we don't think we're trying to change people, it's sometimes that whole fixing thing comes in, and, you know, but yeah, that's amazing. I'm so glad that your family, your dynamic is now just this beautiful thing. Love
Yeah,
it.
'cause I really understood the difference between power and circumstantial power. I'm realizing how red my face is. I'm sitting in front of the fireplace and I'm so red in the face. This is
I was
so,
noticing that
oh my gosh, the big fires. Like, but my,
too.
when I understood the difference between power and circumstantial power. So power is, I have my boundaries, I have my standards, I understand my masculine and my feminine energy, and I decide when I use which energy. I have standards in communication. I know when I'm empowered and when I'm not, always.
Yeah.
That's power. Circumstantial power is, as long as no one's in my face, as long as I'm not triggered, as long as I'm not tired, sad, sick, sleepy in my period, as long as she's not there, as long as he's not there, as long as we're not talking about this, as long as we're not talking about that, as long as we're not bringing that back up, then I mean, and when I was able to understand power instead of circumstantial power, there is nothing on this planet that I cannot handle.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to need to learn more of that. That's amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you for everything today. Thanks for sharing your light with us. And, you know, everyone go give my girl a follow and calibrate in her energy, because she's amazing and she literally will change your life. If you felt any of that on today's episode, just wait until you are actually like in one of her master classes, because she'll just flip your world upside down in all the right ways. So
You're
thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you. This was a really fun talk. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Melanie, so much.